Today is the first Sunday of Advent, and the word Advent, of course, is not in common English vocabulary. It's more of Christian words, and it comes from Latin, which means coming. So it's the time that we are celebrating that Jesus came to this earth, and also it's a time that we are reminded and we look forward to the day when He is coming back. So this coming has two meanings, both the first coming and the second coming. And usually on the first Sunday of Advent, we concentrate more on the second coming part. And today's reading from the Gospel according to Luke is also talking about the second coming. However, Jesus really didn't start this whole talking about the second coming, but He was more talking about the destruction of the temple, which was to come shortly, about 40 years after Jesus said these things. So Jesus describes the destruction of the temple, but then He moves on to His second coming, and that's today's reading. He says there will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars. We can take these words literally or figuratively, because sun, moons, and stars were figuratively used for kings in the Bible portion before Jesus' time. But it doesn't really matter that much whether we take it literally or figuratively, because what Jesus is really wants to emphasize here is that people will have this stressful time. And that's becomes apparent in the next part where he talks about dismay among the nations, and these signs will cause people to faint. So there will be great difficulties throughout the world, throughout all the time actually, before Jesus comes back. He's not really particularly saying some particular incident here, but general incidents that will continue to happen, including our own times, we can say. The whole world is suffering because of COVID-19. And we can see that all people are wearing masks because of that. So, he's talking about these distresses that will happen. Then he says, then they will see the human one coming on a cloud with power and great splendor. Human one is how Jesus refers to himself. So he's talking about his own second coming. And when he comes back, he will come in a spectacular way. Not in the same way that he came first, in an obscure way that nobody noticed. But here, everybody will notice, because he's coming on a cloud. And he's also talking about coming with full authority at the time, and also all honor, because power and great splendor signifies this. So he's talking about, he said he will come after all this stressful time. Then he gives encouragement by saying, now when these things begin to happen, stand up straight and raise your heads, because your redemption is near. Now when he said these things, he's not including his coming back, because by the time he comes back, everybody will look up anyway, so he doesn't need to encourage us to look up. He's talking about the time of distresses, time of disasters, time of sadness that will precede his coming. Then we are to raise our heads. We are to stand up straight and raise our hands, just thinking about Jesus' second coming. So when we face with all the difficulties, that's what we are supposed to do. And indeed, in our Old Testament reading, the prophet Jeremiah is doing the same thing, because he lived at the time when the kingdom collapsed. So he is witnessing the kingdom collapse, but he's looking forward to the future time when the kingdom will be restored. He's talking about that here in our Old Testament reading, when the Messiah comes. Well, this is not to say that when disasters come, like Jeremiah's time, we'll just say, oh, I'm very glad because that means that Jesus is coming soon. Because Jeremiah also wept at the time. Of course, when disasters come, when difficult things come, we should weep and we should feel bad for people who are affected and for ourselves if we are affected. But at the same time, we know that Jesus will come back. This is a reminder, all the difficulties is a reminder that Jesus is coming back. So we will, at the same time of weeping, we can also rejoice. That's what it means. We will stand up straight and raise our heads because our redemption is near. Because when Jesus comes back, it means that we will be saved. And it says, look at the fig trees. When it leaves get greener, you know that the summer is near. And I suppose if Jesus had lived in Adelaide, he would have said, look at the jacaranda tree. Because that's the sign for summer for us. When the jacaranda trees just have these nice flowers, we know that the summer is near. In the same way, when all these things happen, know that Jesus is near. Well, Jesus is not really giving full comparison here because there is some difference here. We know when the jacaranda trees blossom, summer is coming because of our experience. But we never experienced Jesus coming back, so we wouldn't know from our own experience, but we know from Jesus' words. So in the first case, we know on the basis of our experience. In the second case, we know on the basis of Jesus' words. If we trust Jesus' words, when we have all these difficulties in our world, we know that His coming is near. And we have to be careful that Jesus didn't really give the details. So we cannot say, oh, because COVID-19 is near, it means that COVID-19 is happening now, Jesus will come back in 2 years or something. No, Jesus didn't give any details. Jesus gave neither the details of the disasters, difficulties, nor the details about how much time it is left. But whenever we see difficult things in the world, we are reminded that Jesus is coming back soon, whatever that soon means. For the people of Jesus' time, or it meant more than 2,000 years, who knows how many more years we'll have to wait. But we are reminded that He is coming back soon. And it says, I assure you that this generation won't pass away until everything has happened. Generation here generally means also race or people. So it means that His God's people, the church, will not die out before Jesus comes back. He will preserve His church until He comes back. Then He says, heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will certainly not pass away. So Jesus is really giving the surety for His coming back. Even His words will just be even more lasting than the heaven and earth. So if you don't think heaven and earth will pass away easily, Jesus' words will surely come true. And so this is giving a great hope in the time of distress. At the same time, while we have the hope, there's a homework for us as well. Because Jesus says, take care that your hearts aren't dulled by drinking parties, drunkenness, and the anxieties of day-to-day life. Notice that Jesus didn't say, take care that you don't commit great crimes like murder, theft, or adultery, or these things. While these are important, it's not enough. Jesus knows that His disciples will be guarded from these great sins, but also what we consider small sins are important. I say these are small sins maybe because it's is maybe harder to distinguish. These are excess of good things, because parties are good. You don't say we are not going to have parties. Of course, we will have party after today because Ian and Yoko really wanted to celebrate the baptism. So after today's service, we will have party. There's nothing wrong with party. But if we just go into excess of that, there is a problem. If we think that's really the major thing of our life rather than serving God, then there's a problem. And this is a big warning, especially to our generation, because we are so much into entertainment. If we just look around us, how much money is going around in the area of entertainment? How much of these entertainers, whether they are sports stars or the TV stars they earn, and in other smaller areas like hospitality or these things, we are exposed to this more. We are actually reminded of this more through this COVID situation. How much of our economy is really dependent on entertainment business? We are really in the generation where entertainment is counted so much. While it is good to get some entertainment, to relax, to really have time of refreshment, we have to make sure that this is a time of refreshment, not really our main goal. Our main goal is not to be entertained or to enjoy ourselves. Our main goal is to give God the glory. And similarly, our daily life, day-to-day life as well. Because it says, and the anxieties of day-to-day life. Yes, it is important that we should earn our living. So we have to be concerned about our jobs and just how we are going to get by and everything. But if that is our main goal, then there's a problem. We have to put God first, always. And also it means if we are anxious about our day-to-day life, we don't really trust in God that much. We don't trust that God will provide for us. We are just worrying it up by ourselves and just do not pray to God. That is a problem. And he says, don't do these things. Because if you do these things, Jesus' coming will be a surprise to you. Don't let that day fall upon you unexpectedly like a trap. Because for those people who think that entertainment and day-to-day life are most important things, Jesus' coming will come as a surprise. It will come like a trap to us. Therefore, Jesus says, stay alert at all times, praying that you are strong enough to escape everything that is about to happen and to stand before him, before the human one. In other words, we have to be prepared every moment. Not just when we are at church, but every moment we should think about Jesus' second coming. And we have to be prepared about that. And how are we prepared? By praying. See, here prayer is really important. We have to pray diligently. To really keep our faith well. Well, it is important to pray for our day-to-day life. It is important to pray for our health, pray for our healing if we get sick and everything. But that's still secondary. What is most important is to pray for our soul. Pray for our faith. Pray that we should be able to stand before Jesus when he comes back. That should be our major prayer. And that should be prayer for others as well. Because Paul, in our New Testament reading, really prays for the believers in Thessalonians. Exactly that. They should be ready for Jesus' second coming. And after he gives this expression, Luke records that Jesus taught during the day in the temple, but spent each night on the Mount of Olives. And he's saying, Luke is reminding by saying this, that Jesus is very close to his death now. Because Mount of Olives is where he was arrested. So Jesus is actually Jesus gave this speech only 2-3 days before his death. And at the same time, it says all the people rose early in the morning to hear him. So Jesus is preaching even to the very last days of his life. Because what is going to live after he died, and of course he rise again, but go up to heaven, what is going to live with us is his words. And especially this word that he is coming back. So this is what he left to us. We have to keep it into our hearts. So let us remember, first of all, that Jesus is surely coming back. He gave strong guarantee of this with his own words. So let there be no doubt that Jesus is coming back here to establish his kingdom fully here. And before he comes back, we will go through some difficult times. We will go through distresses. We will have hard time on this earth. Don't get illusions saying that, okay, because we are believers, we will just all be happy in this world. No, Jesus didn't promise that. We will have hard times. But let's use these hard times as a reminder that Jesus is coming back. Whenever we have difficult times, let's remember that Jesus will come back and will get rid of all this sadness, all these tears. And while we have this hope that Jesus comes back and destroy all this sadness, let us also remember our homework as well, which is that we should be prepared. And not just prepared certain times, prepared all times. By concentrating on God rather than entertainments, enjoyments, or daily day-to-day life, but concentrating on God. And to do that, especially praying. Praying that God will keep our faith strong. And that is what baptism is about too. That baptism, especially the child baptism, is really for praying for the child that he will, in this case, Shaw will grow up in faith. Shaw will be strong in faith until Jesus comes back. So, as Shaw is baptized, let us really pray that he will be faithful to this baptism for the rest of his life. Glory be to the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.